LWO1 WeatherNet. Liftoff conditions looking pretty good.
ESPS is ready for launch.
Ignition. Liftoff.
Falcon 9 has cleared the tower.
Ten, 9, 8,
Side booster ignition.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello, it's Thursday, February 3rd, and you're looking at a live view of Falcon 9 as it awaits its 1:13 p.m. Eastern Time launch from Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. My name is Andy Tran, and I'm a quality engineer here at SpaceX, joining you from our headquarters in Hawthorne, California. Thank you for joining us for our third launch of Starlink this year and our third launch this week. If you've been following along, you saw us launch Cosmos SkyMed on Monday and our OL-87 yesterday, and now we're capping it off with our very own Starlink launch today. This week also kicked off the beginning of Black History Month. Here in the United States, February is designated as a time to recognize and celebrate the critical roles that Black Americans had and continue to have in shaping our shared history. Here at SpaceX, we encourage everyone to use this opportunity to reflect on the ways the STEM and aerospace fields specifically have benefited from the work of Black Americans. Our launch this afternoon will send 49 Starlink satellites into low Earth orbit, which means they will orbit at about 550 kilometers above the Earth. Today's launch will be going to a 53-degree inclination, and lately we've been flying in this southern trajectory as it increases recovery weather availability for both the booster and fairing halves during the winter months. Falcon 9's southern trajectory makes it more likely to be visible from the ground, so if you're in the area, keep an eye out for it after liftoff. The Starlink satellites will deploy about 15 minutes after liftoff, but we won't have ground station coverage during that time frame. This means that we won't have any live audio or visual confirmation of payload deployment in real time. Given that, we will be ending our webcast just after second engine cutoff and confirmation of deployment on social, and we'll confirm deployment of the satellites on social once we regain coverage at about the T+1 hour and 20-minute mark. Weather is currently a watch item, but the latest weather forecast shows about 80% favorability for liftoff. With that, the vehicle, satellites, and range are all also looking good for an on-time liftoff just a few minutes from now. Today will be our 144th launch of a Falcon rocket. And on screen, you're looking at a live view of our vertical Falcon 9 rocket at Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The first stage booster for this mission is flying for the 6th time. It previously supported NASA's Crew 1 and Crew 2 missions, Sirius XM-8, NASA Commercial Resupply Mission 23, and most recently the IXPE mission at the end of last year. That first stage will accelerate the second stage and our Starlink satellites through the Earth's atmosphere and then separate to make its way back down to Earth. There are 9 Merlin 1D engines at the bottom of the first stage, and fun fact, Falcon 9 is named not only after those 9 engines, but also after the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars. When those 9 engines power up, they'll deliver a thrust roughly equal to 7 747 airplanes taking off at the same time. We will be attempting to recover the first stage on our drone ship, a shortfall of Gravitas. You can sort of see it on the right-hand side of your screen. If you ignore the water there. We have 3 of these drone ships, each of them equipped with station-keeping engines that allow them to hold position autonomously out in the middle of the ocean. If successful, it will mark the 106th recovery of an orbital-class rocket. The black ring near the top of the rocket is our carbon fiber inner stage, which is a composite structure that connects the first and second stages and houses the pneumatic pushers that allow the first and second stage to separate during flight. While the vehicle is called Falcon 9, there are actually 10 engines on board. The area above the inner stage is the Falcon 9 second stage, which has a single Merlin vacuum or MVAC engine. Once the 2 stages separate at about 2.5 minutes into the mission, the MVAC engine will ignite and carry the Starlink satellites to a low Earth orbit around the Earth. And lastly, at the very top of the rocket is a large nose cone. This is called the satellite fairing. The fairing houses the 49 Starlink satellites and protects them until the vehicle is outside of the Earth's atmosphere, at which point the fairing separates to expose these satellites to space. Our fairing is about 40 feet tall with a 17-foot diameter. To put that size into perspective, an average fire truck is about 40 feet long and 12 feet wide, so it would just fit inside of the fairing. And just as we reuse the Falcon 9 first stage, we recover and reuse our fairing halves as well. The fairing halves that we're using today are flight proven, and on one half it's going to be its 4th flight, and the other one's going to be its 6th flight. We are planning to attempt to recover these halves using our recovery vessel Doug once they return to Earth. Propellants have been loading on the vehicle since the T-minus 35-minute mark. Falcon 9 is a bipropellant vehicle, which means it uses 2 propellants, a fuel and an oxidizer. For Falcon 9, our fuel is a refined form of kerosene known as RP1, and our oxidizer is a super chilled liquid oxygen called LOX. The liquid oxygen is chilled well below its boiling point, so it becomes what we call densified, which means it has a much greater amount of mass per volume, and we can load more of it onto the booster. In addition to its propellants, Falcon 9 also needs an ignition source in order to go, and for that we use the chemical compound TTAB, or triethylaluminum and triethylborane. When it's fully fueled, Falcon 9 holds just over 1 million pounds of propellant that the vehicle will burn through in less than 3 minutes after liftoff. Currently, fuel is fully loaded on the first stage and second stage. Liquid oxygen is almost done loading on the first stage and should wrap up on the second stage around the T-minus 2-minute mark. And although weather is still a watch item, the latest weather forecast shows we're about 80% favorable for liftoff. Again, the vehicle, satellites, and range are all also looking good for a on-time liftoff just over 6 minutes from now. Roughly half of the world's population, or nearly 3.6 billion people, do not have access to the internet. Last year, the Starlink teams worked closely with the Chilean government to install the first Starlink kits in Latin America. Both the Chilean government and nonprofit Oceania helped identify and connect 6 remote schools that lacked reliable, high-speed internet services. The first Starlink kit in Latin America has been installed in the region of Sotomo Alto, a small fishing community in the south of Chile. Thanks to Starlink services, students in Sotomo Alto and 5 additional communities are able to enjoy richer learning experiences. In other news, the teams here rolled out Starlink Premium this week. Starlink Premium has more than double the antenna capability of our regular Starlink service, which translates to faster internet speeds and higher throughput. It's designed for super users, whether they be individuals or businesses, to help ensure bandwidth for critical ops even during times of peak network usage. Deliveries start in Q2 of this year, so if you're interested in reserving a spot, you can order now by heading over to starlink.com. So we are just under 5 minutes from liftoff. Falcon 9 is progressing into the final stages of the launch countdown. Next up, the truss structure next to the vehicle, known as the transport erector, will start to retract. In preparation for the retraction, the TE clamp arms will open, and then the strong back will begin to pull away from the rocket slightly, and then at T0, hydraulics pull the TE even further away as Falcon 9 lifts off. The TE is
retract has started.
Next to the Falcon 9. It provides liquids, gases, and electrical connections to the second stage, as well as air conditioning to the payload. So you can see there are some clamp arms just underneath the fairing. We are expecting those to begin to open up here in just a few seconds, and after those start to open up, that structure next to Falcon 9 will begin to back away from it. And you can see that right now that the clamp arms are indeed opening up. Both the first and second stages should finish loading propellant about a minute apart from each other. The first stage should finish up loading its propellant around the T-minus 3-minute mark, and the second stage around the T-minus 2-minute mark. At 60 seconds, Falcon 9 will be in startup. This means that the rocket's autonomous internal flight computers have taken over the launch countdown, and just inside of T-minus 2 seconds, we light the Merlin 1D engines, and then we are set for liftoff. On screen right now is the view of the fairing, and then the strong back right next to it, you can see, has begun to retract away to its pre-launch position.
Stage 1 LOX float is complete.
There was the call out for stage 1 LOX load complete. In about a minute, we should hear the call out for stage 2 LOX load complete. The Starlink payload continues to be healthy, and the Falcon 9 team is tracking no issues on the rocket. So just over 2.5 minutes until liftoff. If you're just joining us, this is the sixth mission for us this year and the third Starlink mission for us this year. So on screen is a view of Falcon 9. That booster is flying for its 6th time today. It's currently stationed at Launch Complex 39A.
Stage 2 LOX float is complete.
And with that call out, we have wrapped up propellant loading not just on the second stage, but for the vehicle overall. You can start to see some white clouds building up around Falcon 9. This is normal and expected for us at this stage in the countdown. That is that super chilled liquid oxygen that we talked about earlier. When it reaches the warmer ambient air temperatures of Florida, those clouds start to form.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
At this point, both stages are beginning to pressurize for liftoff, and we are expecting the launch director to give the final go for launch here in just a few seconds.
Launch director, go for launch.
And with that call out, all systems are go for launch. Let's listen in to terminal count and watch as Falcon 9 takes our 49 Starlink satellites into orbit.
T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 15. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Liftoff, Starlink 47.
Vehicle is pitching downrange.
M1D chamber pressures are nominal.
We are T plus 40 seconds into liftoff. Falcon 9 has successfully cleared pad 39A and carrying our stack of 49 Starlink satellites into orbit. Moments ago, we began to throttle down the engines on the first stage in preparation for max Q. This is where the vehicle will experience the highest amount of aerodynamic stresses during ascent.
Max Q.
And there was max Q. We are getting some great views of this daytime liftoff. In about a minute, we have 3 events happening in quick succession. First up is main engine cutoff, also known as MECO, followed by stage separation, and then second engine start 1, also known as SES1. During main engine cutoff, this is where all 9 Merlin engines on the first stage will shut down in order to slow the vehicle down in preparation for stage separation.
And back engine chill has started.
During stage separation, the first and second stages will separate from one another. The first stage will make its way back to our drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean for its landing attempt. And the second stage will continue with the third event, which is second engine start 1. This is where the single Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage will ignite and continue to propel the second stage along with the 49 Starlink satellites into orbit.